Check, 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 check. Oh, fuck. That's what I want. Check, test, testing, testing, testing. What, two? Yes. She was sitting there and she told me the story about how, yeah, I would see you and I would tell Carl. She told me the story about how, yeah, I would see you and Some point, like only half of the church knew one another. I think there were about 2 people who lived down the other end of the church who actually it was like strangers. But that whole heroin thing, man, moved in, house one time, me and my sister, my mother worked in the kitchen. And he just broke into the house, sat down at the kitchen table, eat all the candy. And they don't, it's just a big thing for her when they just eat my sweets. They didn't come up there and mess with us, thank God. But they took everything. They took the television, they took the stereo, they took the peanut butter and jelly, they did everything, man. And my mother came home the next morning like, living. Sometimes we have, the neighbors from hell who you wish would move, get kicked out, don't pay the rent, so you got to go. Yeah, but again, that heroin thing, man, just robbed the whole environment, man, of a lot. But we spent many days in that field across the street when I was playing so many games of baseball. I was glad we lived across from there because I couldn't go off the terrace, but I could always go across the street because my mother could see where I was. So we played a lot of football, a lot of baseball. Hell, I didn't weigh but a couple of ounces, but it was always fun. I said I wasn't going to make just another love song, right? I didn't want to do a love song at all. But it's unavoidable, man, As a human being, you come into contact with people every day, man. And some you connect with, some you reject. Your spirit just rejects them now. Just get away. It's like you run, Forrest, run. That kind of mindset, right? But when you find somebody, man, who really, vibe with, right? That's easy, especially if you got a caretaker person. They just like lure all the problem children, But anywho, so when you think about love is, man, it's an action word, right? And you just have to learn not just how to love somebody when you want to love them, but you have to learn how to love somebody when they need to be loved. You have to protect me, baby. In this place, nuts, berries, and fruits, rivers of milk and honey, silk soup, paradoxical enlightenment, spirits running free, creations and pairs, just one day like me. A servant to the poor, toiling hand and foot, gonna do upon my body. It claims to me like soot, prostrating on the daily. All praises due, balance and tranquility. He said she bring to you. The 3 of us together formulate the twine. The cord cannot be broken, relies upon the divine. It's not the voice of reason that tore us from this place. An unconscionable intuition made us have a taste. I'm not lost without you. With you, I've been away. I would love no more. Been married before. one another, lost sight of our purpose. Spirits in disarray, buried beneath our surface, masquerading representatives. No fear of the one above. Dramatic indentations, scarring the ones we love. Ordained from conception. That kind of mindset, right? But you know, when you find somebody, man, you know, who really, you know, vibing with, right? You know, that's easy, especially if you got a caretaker person. They just like lure all the problem children, you know? But anywho, so, you know, what the thing about love is, man, you know, it's an action word, right? And you just have to learn not just how to love somebody where you want to love them, but you have to learn how to love somebody where they need to be loved. You have to protect me, baby. In this way, it's not very fruits, rivers of milk and honey, silk brocade, paradoxical enlightenment, spirits running free, creations in pairs, just one day like me, a servant to the poor, toiling hand and foot, morning dew upon my body, it clings to me like soot, prostrating on the daily, all praises due, balance and tranquility, he said she bring to you. And three of us together formulate the twine. A cord cannot be broken, relies upon the divine. It's not the voice of reason that tore us from this place. An unconscionable intuition made us have a taste. I'm not lost without you. With you, I've been away. I would love no more. Been married before. Here together, trying to pass the test, spreading seeds of broad mankind, just a mess. And eyes with one another, lost sight of our purpose. Spirits in disarray, buried beneath our surface. Masquerading representatives, no fear of the one above. Traumatic indentations, scarring the ones we love. Ordained from conception to care for and protect. What he gave in her from him would help us live correct. With free will in our being, and it gone unchecked. Internal strife, man, need to write more than one. I did select the appointed will bring us guidance. Heed the words they say, patiently persevering. Remembrance the only way. I'm not lost without you. With you, I went away. I want love no more. Been married before. I gave my love to you. Spoke promises, not idle chatter. Kept my word, reciprocated absurd. My life to you didn't matter. You told me that you loved me. Malicious covert games you play. Selfishly combative. Compromise was not your way. Vacillating spirit. Cognitive dissonance in command. Reject my role of leader. Just bring me as a man. Love and be as easy. It's rain anger of him. Manipulated from the start. Never like a huge friend. Treated like an object. Placed upon a shelf. Use me when you wanted to. All about yourself. I'm not lost without you. With you, I went away. I would love no more. Been married before. Yeah, it's like Tina once said, stuff got to do. A lot of people debated that statement. But Tina was right. You see, you got to learn how to not only love a person the way you know how to love, but you have to love the way they need to be loved. You know, I can tell you how to love me, how to handle me. Yeah, because you got to know how to handle me, right? You got to learn how to handle my heart, my mind, my spirit, right? You have to have a go-to source, you know, the same one that I use. Yeah, God. Because if that ain't your go-to source, well, this is, you got a go-away source, because this ain't gonna last, baby. Yeah. So, let's get it right. Hey y'all, what's going on? This is your man Sabir Aleem, and welcome to another episode of Daddy's Right Here Live. And live I am. The tune you just got finished listening to, if you're not listening and watching on YouTube, is B4. It's from my newly released album, Poetic Peace, which you can find on iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube Music, and coming soon to other platforms. Make sure you check the album out. It's my first album. I have 8 other releases, singles, that you can also find on those same platforms. So please make sure you check it out. It's a wonderful thing, man, to play your own music on your own show, right? Because you don't have to deal with copyright infringements and all that other kind of stuff. And I don't understand any of that, because, you know, if I'm playing your music, you're getting the hit for your music. And, you know, you listen, I'm promoting your stuff. I see how that goes now. And I actually found out how that goes, you know, in a lot of areas other than just music. You know, some will say, well, when you have your show and you're playing my music should get the credit. Yeah, it should get the credit, you know, but it doesn't have to be a matter of the show getting taken off of Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, or anything else, any other platform that I'm doing the show in, because I'm favoring your artistry. Therefore, I'm recognizing what it is that you do. But, you know, it's like so many other things, man, that you know, you just can't do certain things. You can't say certain things because there's always somebody looking for something. You know, play my music. You know, when it hits, I mean, I'm going to get the funds for it. You know, because this YouTube station is monetized. Um, it's recorded everywhere whose song it is. So take that credit. That's yours. I don't want your credit, but I do want to make sure that I, you know, play stuff that, you know, I like. And if it's your music, I like it, and others like it. So that's why I'm playing it, because, you know, others want to hear it. But it's all good. But that's, you know, that's kind of segue for continuing the conversation from last week, when we were talking about this so-called woke culture.
right? And I was reading from an article, 10 Ways to Fight Back Against Woke Culture. And it's an article that I found. It's the New York Post, and it's an article that was written by Barry Weiss. And again, not Barry White, Barry Weiss. He wrote this article, and I really didn't start hearing anything about woke culture until I started, hearing different politicians make mention of it. And when they made mention of it, it was always a defensive mention. It wasn't a matter of, just saying something in general sense. There are people being targeted, there are groups being targeted, who are faced with, injustices, inequalities, workplace matters. It's just really gotten out of hand. And um, I talked about a lot of things last week in the beginning of the article, so I never got a chance to get to those 10 things. So tonight I want to get to those 10 things, um, that ways that you can fight back against woke culture. And this is not an article I agree nor disagree with. It's an article of interest that should be read, and you make the decision on your own as to whether you want to fight back against woke culture, or whether you are in line with the so-called woke culture. It's just something that we all have to begin to take a look at. Saying things that are politically correct, agreeing, disagreeing, and being part of certain groups and religious groups. Any kind of other groups that have some level of identity of a particular person, place, thing, whatever it is. There's always perceptions that people have, and yours is very valid. But you can't invalidate somebody else's simply because you're not in agreement with it. I don't have to disagree with you. I don't have to condone what it is that you do. But that doesn't mean that sometimes the things that are being said and or done are not in alignment with the course of action. And the course of action is typically recognizing that everybody has rights, and there are people, who exist in America and abroad, who have their rights stomped on. And the black and the brown are always the target of social injustices. That's your reality. That's your reality. That's my reality as a 62-year-old black male who has faced all kind of social injustices, racism, all kind of other biases merely because of the color of my skin. Nothing I said, nothing I did, but merely because of the color of my skin. And there's other people out there fighting for rights every day because of their identity. So the paragraph pretty much ends with, it's time to stand up, and this is to the article, it's time to stand up and fight back. That means you. Social conservatives, never Trump Republicans, and anti-Trump Republicans too, lukewarm liberals and libertarians, progressives who have a little curiosity still left, exhausted parents who want nothing to do with politics, right? It talks about Reddit revolutionaries and the hedgies getting crushed, Facebookers and email chainers and Etsy shop owners and boomers who still use AOL accounts. So these are 10 principles that Barry Weiss identified as being ways to fight against woke culture. So number one on the list is remind yourself right now of the following truth: you are free. It's true that we live in an upside down time in which pressing the like button on the wrong thing can bring untold consequences. But giving in to those who seek to confine you only hurt you in the long run. Your loss of self is the most significant thing that could be taken away from you. Don't give it up for anything. So, in your social media feed, you see a lot of different people posting things, people who you've chosen to follow. There are people who also follow you for a variety of reasons, not necessarily because they like you. Some just want to monitor, observe, and judge you by what it is that you post and also by what you like. Case in point, um, uh, I uh, I follow the Nation of Islam on Twitter, on on Instagram, on a couple of other social media platforms. So just me pressing like alone on something that uh, the Nation of Islam points out, Minister Farrakhan says, and I like it. Already I'm categorized. Already I'm categorized because he's been labeled as being anti-Semitic. He's been labeled, the Nation of Islam has been labeled as a separatist organization by the Southern Poverty Law. Therefore, you don't never have to even listen to anything that the Nation of Islam, Minister Farrakhan, or anybody under that umbrella says, right? You listen to anything that they say and you're categorized such. But you never even have to come to know what that platform really represents because you've already taken information from the Southern Poverty Law and used that information. A lot of you don't even know what it means to be anti-Semitic. A lot of you don't even know what Semites are, let alone to identify a person as being as such merely because of what you saw in social media. So you have this whole go along to get along mindset, and you don't follow that thinking simply because somebody else is going to judge you and make a decision about who you are and how you think and how you live based solely on you follow that person. That's just how it is. You're not going to change that. That's not going to change. But when you get locked into fear of what somebody else, some other group is going to think about you, you stop being yourself. Because this is somebody you enjoy listening to. Because there are truths. I don't have to agree with everything he says. I don't have to agree with everything my mother has to say. My wife, my children. Does that mean that I have to dislike them? So it's either like or dislike. So if you don't hit like, somebody sees that you follow them and that you saw the post, but you didn't hit like. That automatically makes them think you dislike it. Because I'm pro-black, does that mean I'm anti something? Right? So a lot of times we avoid doing certain things because we're concerned with what others would say about us, what others would judge as being, especially when it comes to, the government observing what it is that we do. So automatically something happens and somebody says, "Oh yeah, well he hit a couple of likes on the Nation of Islam on Minister Farrakhan. Therefore, this is who he is." So they automatically use that and say, "Okay, well because you associated with this, we think what you said or what you did is teetering on this, or this is what you represent. This is what you represent." So now you have to go through all kind of legalities to defend why you like something. But why is that important to you? How do I treat you? How do I talk to you? The evidence is directly from that source, me. Me. But that's a whole host of other things that happen as well. Um, and it mentioned different religions and things of that nature. So you automatically say, okay, well, Sabir, is that Muslim? You one of the Muslims, right? You this and you that, and you don't even know, the religion of Al Islam itself, right? And what a Muslim is, but you've made all these decisions based on what somebody told you. And it happened even more so when 9/11 hit. right? Every Muslim got judged and got labeled as being what's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry, it's just escaping me at the time. But it's like you put together something radical. That's what I'm looking for. So it came up with the term radical Islam. There's no such thing. Islam is Islam. Somebody's thinking can be radical, but you can't say that Islam is radical. But you say that because of an event, and you were told these things about Muslims having been responsible for it. But this is a radical group of thinkers. Nothing to do with Islam. Nothing to do with Islam. But automatically, you took and ran with it. So every time you saw somebody with a kufi, first thing you want to do is get away from them, or you want to attack them. So we had a lot of that happening with the Muslim community. People being attacked simply because of what you saw on television, because of what you saw on social media, and how somebody else interpreted, and you looked at the source, and because of how you perceive the source, you automatically believed it. You automatically believed it. But there's been little to no conversation on a so-called conspiracy theorist, right, who saw that as another kind of attack. But you can't have that conversation, because when you have that conversation, then you're loony, you're crazy. It's a conspiracy theory. But it depends on who it comes from. Had I wrote a book just like another person who's non-Muslim wrote a book, that non-Muslim didn't come under the same scrutiny that I would come under, because my name is Sabir Alim and I'm Muslim, right? And that's how the world goes, right? It's how it goes. So you like it. Live in fear. Somebody's going to always have. So don't go along, get along. But we take ourselves to like fear. It's intended to be that way. If I label this group as being this and you follow, therefore you are the threat. But we've already seen via January 6th, if nothing else, you've seen it live in living color, what the real enemy is, who the real enemy is. Right here in America. But you won't hear that. It gets played down. It gets played down. Oh, they just boys having fun. They were just upset. They're just passionate about their country. Really? Really? But they weren't faced with M16s, military equipment staring at them, at us, while we protested social injustices. There was nothing said. Right? Everybody got quiet. So you make the decision as to what you believe. Don't allow social media or anyone else to change their thinking without facts. Without facts, you're going to always have a knucklehead in the crew. We can peacefully protest, and there's people who take advantage and go out there and do the other stuff. So how do you label the entire group? But yet still, when we saw January 6th, January 6th has been dealt with differently. It was just a group of people there showing their passion for, United States of America, and that was it. There was no violence. There wasn't this. There wasn't that. Right? And when you debate that, right, publicly debate that, there's another label put upon you. Another label put upon you. And again, they look at what you've liked, who you follow, who's in your stream, who follows you, what you do in public life, what you do in private life, what you say, don't say, do or don't do. It's just, it's the nature of our environment, and it's inescapable. So remind yourself that you're free. As much as people try to take away your First Amendment, we deal with it every day. There's no First Amendment. It's just written. because everything that you say is used against you. Is used against you. Even with this whole RICO thing, with the artists in music, and how the beats and things that you talk about in your music and all this other stuff, it's used against you. Yeah, it's used against you. Even what I say right now, it's used against me. But I'm not fearful of any of these things. I'm not living in fear. Now, there's some things that are just outright stupid to be said publicly. That's just a reality. Because you're met with a different set of consequences. Right? But it doesn't mean that you stop following other thinkers. I follow Republicans. Right? I'll follow some of the knuckleheads, the politicians that have all this slick talk to come out of their mouth, have something to say, right? I want to know. I want to know where you stand with a whole lot of things. You keep voting all these people in the office, and you don't really know where they stand. Again, Trump versus Biden, right? We made a decision, as Democrats, that we're going to vote for Biden. Why? Why? What has he done so far since he's been in office for black folks? Nothing. With the stroke of a pen, he can do just about anything. Trump showed that, didn't he? And he did it. He just did it. Whatever the consequences were, he did it. Right? What has Biden done? But if you're black and you vote Republican, you was a sellout. Well, what are you when you voted for Biden, and look at what he's done or not doing? And here he is making a promise of, I'm going to, pardon, all these people who are in prison for, drug possession or drug users at the federal level. At the federal level. But I'm going to pardon them as I'm leaving office. So I want you people of color, you black and you brown folks, to hear this, because I'm really for you. Look at his track record. His track record says otherwise. But then we have all these folk who want to come out and say, I'm a Democrat and I'm this, that, and the other. Newsflash. They all sit under the same umbrella. They all sit under the same umbrella. Right? They all have the same representation. It's just two parties. Right? Number 2, be honest. Do not say anything about yourself or others that you know is false. Let me say that again for the ones in the back who didn't hear what I said. Do not say anything about yourself or others that you know is false. Right? How many things do we say about other people? Right? That we don't know with certainty. They have said, done, not said, not done. We call people racist, right? Because of what fact? Because you don't hear a white person speaking to the issues of blacks, that automatically makes them racist? How many conversations do we have that are not inclusive of whites or others? Are we racist for not fighting for that cause? Regardless of the disproportions, right? Just look at it for what it is. We're quick to, as people of color, black, brown people, we call people racist, whites racist, simply because of something that they said in a particular way. That doesn't make them racist, and it doesn't mean that they have to enlighten themselves more on the black cause. What does that have to do with changing things? You want me to act the way you want me to act. You want me to say things in the manner that you want me to say them. I don't have to involve myself in understanding black culture. I understand what you're saying. Am I in a position to bring about change? If I'm in a position of bringing about change, I should listen. It doesn't mean that the expected response, has to be said in order for you to be in agreement with that person. Going back to the article, absolutely refuse to let your mind be colonized, right? And if you think about it, right, we have, um, again, I always go back to the parties because we keep talking about the right to vote and how many people died for the right to vote, how many black folks died fighting for the right to vote. But we also had to hide to learn to read and how to teach others how to read. I don't hear any uproars about that. I don't hear any uproars about the statistics on how many black and brown people are reading at first and second grade reading levels, right? Who are in high school, at third grade reading levels, who are in collegiate studies. I don't hear any uproar about that. I don't. And how many people died because they found out that they were learning how to read or that they had taught others? That was a death penalty in itself for many. No conversation about that. So, what you find of the utmost importance, I don't necessarily have to find of the utmost importance. And because you're having a conversation about the right to vote, and I bring up the right to read, you defend your position and not hear the position that I'm taking. Therefore, neither one of them are going to have any kind of positive outcome because it's always a back and forth. When we start going forth and stop going back and forth, we'll come to a better understanding of the other person, group of people, or whatever it is. We'll come to a better understanding and we can move forward. We can't move forward if we keep going back and forth. Another thing it talks about here is the first crazy thing someone asks you to believe or to profess, refuse. Just refuse. No, I'm not going to believe that, brother. Right? And it says, if you can, do so out loud. I'm doing it out loud. I'm not a go along to get along person anymore. Not at 62 years old. At this point in life, I should have, and I have gained more wisdom. And laughing at your corny behind jokes, sitting there nodding my head in agreement because you're saying it and the other 12 people around you are, in agreement with you. I'm supposed to sit there and agree too. Because if I don't, then I'm a coon, I'm a sellout, I'm this, I'm that. That's the thinking. Hence the reason why there's been no forward progress. Everything is going backwards. Take a look at what's happening in the black and brown communities. Things are going backwards with us, and we're trying to get others to move forward when we have our lives on pause, when we're still living in the past. We still keep having this conversation about slavery, but we're not having the conversation about self-imposed poverty. Yes, there are conditions that have people living in poverty because, of wages or because of access to certain things. But there's more that you can do with that money. If you can be collecting subsidies from the state and go out and buy a pair of Jordans, go out and buy a pair of some other expensive clothing, right? All in the name of trying to look like you have arrived or you're better than somebody else. There's something wrong with that picture. If you get $400 a month and you're not taking at least 10% of that money and putting it away, but you're buying all these expensive things, there's something wrong with that picture. Everybody can save something. But how many people are one paycheck away from poverty and have never taken a look at their spending and their conduct? Right? So be honest. I don't have to believe it. And I remember I was at I was in one of my Islamic studies classes some years back, and there was a hadith regarding um, somebody going to somebody else and telling them what so and so said. And the response was, go back to so and so and ask them where it's written. Right? Ask them where it's written. Right? So when people are telling you things, where's your proof? Now you can go online and you can find a whole bunch of people, right, who agree with your position. And you can go online and find a whole slew of people who are in disagreement with your position. Right? That's the easy thing to do. But where are the facts? Where are they getting their information from? Where are they getting their information from? Right? That's what you have to begin to look at. So it says here in the article, there's a good chance it will inspire others to speak up too. We have too many of us who sit around and are silent simply because we don't want others to have a particular perception of us. But they already do. You know, they've already formed their opinion. So you're not going to change that. And then if you just go along and to get along, they got an opinion about that too. They got an opinion about that too. And sometimes they don't even believe what you're saying, but you're just saying it just to say it. Just to say it. Number 3 says stick to your principles. If you are a decent person, you know mob justice is never just. Right? We've seen that. We know that. Right? So never join a mob. Ever. That's what the article says. Even if you agree with the mob, still don't go along with the mob. Don't be a part of the mob. Right? If you are a decent person, you know betraying friends is wrong. So if a friend or a colleague does something you disagree with, write them a private note. Don't be a snitch. Now, I'm not in agreement with the term snitch, because if you use the term snitch, that means that you are part of that mob, right? You are part of that group. Therefore, if you are part of a particular group, that you're responsible to adhere to whatever laws of that group are, right? But it says, give them a private note. You ain't got to put them out on blast, right? Any mob that comes for them will come for you too, right? They'll come for you too. So never join a mob. And when I look at political parties, ultimately, this is what position we have been forced into, right? Because that's all it is. You go to vote, you got people telling you, here, vote Democrat, vote this, vote that, and so on and so forth. It's ridiculous. If you live in a particular community, affluent communities are real big on that, in terms of, this happening in the community, but we keep it quiet, right? We keep it here. Law enforcement gets involved. No, we're going to keep it on the DL because we start getting bad reviews out about this community. People won't move here. We want people to move here, and so on and so forth. So it's the same way in communities that are not affluent, right? Murders happen right before people's very eyes. 12 people standing there. One person got shot. You talk to those 12 people standing there, ain't nobody see nothing. And you say that you're not part of that culture. You're not part of that mob, but you become part of that culture. You become part of that mob. If this person is blatant enough to do it in front of you, if you have fear that they're going to come and do the same to you, therefore you say nothing, you establish a culture where nobody says anything about anything. You might as well be out on the street with them. You might as well be out on the street with them because you are ascribing to that street law. So don't look for the police. Don't look for the detectives to solve anything because nobody is saying anything. But you want to beat up on them because, well, y'all been this and y'all been that. Y'all haven't found. Well, ask the 12 people who stood there and watched your son get murdered. Ask them why they haven't come forward. Ask them. Ask them. They saw it. Ask them. Instead of beating up on law enforcement, you won't do that. Right? Number 4, set an example for your kids and your community. That means being courageous. Right? I understand that it's hard. I'm going back to the article. Really hard. But in other times and places, including in our own nation, people have made far greater sacrifices. Think of those honored dead who gave the last full measure of devotion. If enough people make the leap, we will achieve something like herd immunity. Right? That's what you have to start looking at. We have family members, friends, associates who we know what they do. We know the level of involvement, right? We see the dirt and we don't say anything. But then as soon as something happens to them, first thing we do is, right, lash out at law enforcement, lash out at the justice system, but all the while we could have done something about it. All the while we could have done something about it. All the while we could have stopped what was going on. You're not bringing this in my house. Leave my house. End the story. You bring it in my house again, you'll never return again. Right? You need to leave that life alone. And if they don't want to leave that life alone, after you've told them to leave that life alone, you need to not be in their company. I don't care who the hell it is. If you're dirty, I'm not rolling with you. I'm not having you in my car. We're not rolling anywhere. I'm not picking you up because I know that you're dirty. And if I, for whatever reason, happen to get stopped and you in the ride with me, I'm part of that. So I'm not ascribing to any of that. Right? But you see all these things going on and you do nothing about it. You see the activity that happens. You stand right there and you see somebody get slumped and you say nothing because you're worried about they're going to come and get you too. Well, how long do you think it's going to be before it's you or a loved one? How long do you think it's going to be without you even opening your mouth? You want a safer community? You want a safer place for your kids to be able to play in the background? You need to start speaking up. You need to start speaking up. So that's what it's telling you. You got to set the example for your kids. The culture that we have today in the streets, we have because of what the community is failing to do. Bottom line, don't blame law enforcement. Don't blame the justice system, right? For the amount of time that's given. You can prevent, in so many instances, this from happening. I'm not part of the mob. I'm not affiliated. I'm not going to ascribe to anything. Anything. Period. I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something. That mother, that father is over there mourning the loss of their child. You see their faces every day. You see their struggle every day. Their child was unnecessarily murdered. and you rather keep saying, "Hey, Miss Mary, how you doing? How the hell you think I'm doing?" And you let your kids see that this is how you deal with things. And what do your kids do? Your kids grow up and they do the same thing. And that's why we have the culture. We have the street culture in all of our communities, and we ain't part of the street. Number 5, if you don't like it, leave it. I'm around a whole lot of black and brown folks, right? But I'm not going to sit around anybody who's talking about hate the white man, kill the white man. You know, the white man. I don't want to hear none of that. I don't want to hear none of that. I'm sick of hearing it. I'm sick of thumbing through my feeds. And that's all I keep seeing is racism. You know, I know it exists. I'm 62 years old. As a child, I experienced it. I know what racism is. Why is that the only narrative we seem to keep talking about? Why is that the only thing that we keep putting in our feed? What is it doing for us? It's fueling the fire. It's fanning the fire. It's intentional. It's propaganda. It's intended to keep you angry, to keep you enraged, to keep you from not moving forward with an agenda that we should be having to progress. That's all it's doing. It's sickening. It's sickening. It is. It happens. We know it happens. Okay, when it happens, we deal with it. We have organizations who continue to fight. We keep doing that. But everything that I see in my feeds, beef, 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 beef. That's all I keep saying. Racism, 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 racism. It's not going anywhere, folks. Racism is not going anywhere. It's not. It's never going to be outwardly said by any politician who's in a relevant office, right? And when I say relevant, I mean at the Senate, the Congress, President. It is never going to be said. This is the enemy. January 6th. It ain't nobody chanting. It's no mantra. This is the enemy, and this is how we need to deal with it. And it's obvious. It's not going to be said. Don't expect for it to be said. It's not going to. We have to, as a black and brown people, we have to do better with our narrative. Number 5 on this list. If you don't like it, leave it. A class in college, a job, anything. Get out and do your own thing. I fully understand the impulse to want to change things from within. And by all means, try as hard as you can. But if the leopard is currently eating the face of the person at the cubicle next to yours, I promise it's not going to refrain from eating yours if you post the black square on Instagram. I just got finished telling you that. You can sit there all you want and say nothing. And say nothing. It's just a matter of time before it shows up on your doorstep. For the life of me, I never thought that somebody close to me who's not involved in street life would be murdered. My father was murdered helping somebody else, always helping people. He was murdered by the very person who he was helping earn some money so he could take care of his family. He probably could have and should have been off the street long before that. It's probably not his first time. And then you start hearing the rumors. Oh, yeah, well, he was this and he was that, he this and he that. But nobody said anything. Nobody said anything. Nothing. Thankfully, somebody said something, right? Which enabled the detectives, homicide, to finally catch this dude. And this dude is now serving time. Somebody else close to me lost their loved one He was involved. He was in the street. He was doing his thing. They shot him so many times, they shot half his face off. People saw it happen. Oh, and the homies were part of it. But it was an elderly woman who saw it because it happened right next to her house. And she went and testified in court. And they were locked up and they're still in prison. So it's a whole another discussion we're going to have one day about the so-called homies, about those ride to die Negroes that you're rolling with. I ride solo. I ride solo. See this wolf on my neck? Yeah, I ride solo. I don't have time for it. I came through all that. I have time for it. Ain't nobody got your back but you. Nobody got your back but you. And when somebody is faced with having to do some time, guess what? Yeah. Watch the last 48, the first 48. I'm sorry. Watch the first 48 and watch your homies see what they do to keep themselves free. Yeah. Ain't no loyalty on the streets. Ain't no loyalty in the game at all. None. You don't like it, leave it. Number 6 on the list, become more self-reliant. If you can learn to use a power drill, do it. If you've always wanted an outdoor solar hot tub, make one. Learn to poach an egg or shoot a gun. Most importantly, get it in your head that platforms are not neutral. They're not neutral. Everybody has an agenda. Every platform has an agenda. You think Instagram, Twitter, and all these other platforms were put in place because they want you to get new friends? They want you to like people because they like you? Hell to the no. There's an agenda there. There's a marketing agenda there. Yeah. That's why you see these ads in your feeds. There's an agenda there. There's a political agenda there. It's filled with propaganda, right? All kind of stuff to fill your head, to flame the fire of hate, of divide and conquer. And it's been quite successful. It's been quite successful. You don't see my personal life, my whole personal life on social media. What you see in my craft, what you see is the things that I try to do to get people, to change their condition, right? My music, my artwork, my films, right? Motivating things. You don't need to know where I went on vacation. It's none of your damn business where I went on vacation. Do you really care? If you cared, you'd call me. Hey, where you go this year for vacation? You don't need to know how many people live in my household, who lives in my household. You don't need to know. That's none of your damn business. If you wanted to know, right, we'd be in touch. Let's just call it what it is. So I don't put my personal life out on social media like that because it's none of your business. You can see how I'm doing. You can see how I'm doing. I don't have the right to put anybody else on social media but myself. I don't have the right to take pictures of other people and post their. I don't have that right. So it's a matter of respecting others and their rights. So respect mine. But what I do, I've been doing this since 2013 is when I started doing YouTube, Twitter, and all that stuff. But back in 2005 is when I started doing the fatherhood piece, right? I'm not doing it for likes. I'm not doing it for handshakes, claps, and all that. I'm doing it because I know the significance of an active father. I know the significance of two parents being actively involved in the life of their child or their children. I know the significance of self-healing, that's why I do it. That's why I do it. The music I do it and I enjoy doing it. I'm not looking for a contract. If I get one, great. If not, I'm leaving a legacy. My grandchildren, grandchildren, and so on and so forth. Family, people, other people can see what I left behind and encourage them to do the same. Leave something. This ain't my life. This is a blessing. It's a blessing. So do I have an agenda? Yes. I want you to improve your life. I want you to see that you can change. I want you to see that things ain't always got to be that way. Yeah, that's my agenda. Let's get it right. I want you to know that you're not alone. Let's get it right. That's my agenda. So we all have an agenda. That's my agenda. I am my own brand. I don't dress like anybody else. I don't go out and buy all the same clothes that everybody that buy. I just don't. The music I make is mine. It's unique. It's original. I'm not listening to somebody else and say, "Yeah, I'm going to copy that beat." No, I'm not doing any of that. I'm doing mine. The films that I make, they're me. They're my brand. You don't have to agree. I don't care if you agree. Doesn't matter. To the extent that, going back to the article of neutrality, due to the extent that you can build your life to be self-reliant and not 100% reliant on the web, it's a good thing. It will make you feel competent and powerful, which you are, right? So become more self-reliant, right? You'll get more accurate and more definitive information by reading a book than you will on social media. Go into the library and read a book. Read a book. Get a book out of the library. I just downloaded the Torah, and which are the 5 books of Moses, which I read back in 1988, 89. I read the Torah, and I downloaded it last night, and I started reading that. You have to come to know who you are. You have to come to understand your own humanity. Like, we're not children, and this show is not for children. You know, it's for people who are preferably 18 and above. There's some 15, 16-year-olds out there, who, are pretty sharp and are learning. But I'm talking to adults. You're an adult. You're not a child. So going along to get along, laughing at people's corny jokes and stuff, so you can get some candy, so you can get some weed or a drink or something like that, or whatever the case is. Them days are over. Be you, do you. I'm going to go to 7, and we're going to stop at 7, because we're at the hour for the show. Number 7 from this article: worship God more than Yale. In other words, do not lose sight of what is essential, necessary. Professional prestige is not essential. Yeah. I've been in the field for about 26 years. Been in supervisory position most of my career. Have a damn good position right now. That's not essential. Being employed is essential. But first and foremost, being a great servant, working hard at being a great servant is more important to me than anything else. Because I know as long as I continue to serve God, that whatever is going to the left in my life will eventually go right. But I have to do some work on myself too. I have to get outside of that box that so many people are still locked into. And I have to come to understand that, I need to do this on my own. And when I say on my own, I don't mean without the help of others, because changing things comes at the hands of help, of getting help from others. Others are going to be instrumental in that. But you have to have the courage to go ask somebody for help. You have to have the courage to say, I don't know. You have to have the courage to say, I'm struggling. I need help. That takes courage, right? But I know that if I continue to have faith in God, but if I continue, most importantly, to be a good servant, I'm going to get my reward. Don't mean it's going to be what I want, but I'm going to be rewarded. Even if I die, it's time for me to go home. It's time for me to go home. I've been here 62 years. I done been through some stuff. I done been through some places. I done did some things. I'm still here. Why would I be anything other than a good servant to the Creator? You lose a job, they're gonna post your position and hire somebody else. Being popular is not essential. So when you have people going online, they looking for all these likes, and you see all these likes, and yeah, well, they don't like you. They might like something you said. They may like something you showed. It don't mean they like you. Not at all. I like what you had to say. And we'll find that we'll like something that people we have separated ourselves from, we can hear something that they say and we can like it, but because within us we don't like that person, we won't like what they said. And you don't think that that's childlike? You think that makes sense? Getting your child into an elite preschool is not essential. Having your child dressed in designer gear at the age of 2 months, 3 years, 7 years, 13 years old is not essential. That $100, $200 you spent on them sneaks, you could have bought a pair for $100 and took the other $100 and put it into a bank account for them. Now they grow up, finish school, 18 years old, and they still living with you, and you want them to get out. They can't. They don't know anything about budgeting. They don't know how to manage finances. They're stuck on stupid because all they think they need to do is wear designer gear, look better than everybody else, and that's what life is about. That is not essential. Doing the right thing is essential. So it goes back to the things that we previously discussed, right? That we previously discussed. Is it essential for you to have a safe community? Is it essential for you to be able to sit out on your step on a nice, warm summer night with your orange juice and chill, to watch your children running up and down the streets, having fun and not worrying about gunshots, or the boys down there on the corner with the crap game, or the whole block reeking of weed, right? You have to look at all those things. Is it essential for you to have that? If it's essential for you to have that, stop looking at the government to make that for you. That's what you have to do. You create that environment. Don't complain about it when you do nothing about it. Don't complain about it. I lived on the block when I lived up in Logan, in the Hunting Park section. I had 2 bars on the corner when I first started venturing in that area. Then I eventually moved there. By the time I moved there, 1 bar was closed down, and another bar was getting ready to close down. Neither one of those bars are there anymore. They have prostitutes up and down the street. Most of those prostitutes, the way the strip was, most of them are gone. So they do walkthroughs. And you still have a few to hang out in that area. But before, you would have Johns parked on each side of the street, man, getting their work and driving off. That's how bad it was, right? All it took was the members of that block in that community to get together and say, no, we're not doing it anymore. And in Philly, the bars are only are owned by about 5 people, Because can't nobody come up with that kind of money to get a liquor license. But they got shut down. They held politicians accountable to doing what they need to do. They held law enforcement accountable to do what they need to do. If I call you and tell you there's a fight down there, this place is a nuisance, I need you to come and shut it down. Eventually, both of those bars were closed down. Telling the truth is essential. Protecting your kids is essential. You got to take your child to the playground, and you got to go in there at least 4 to 6 deep so you can protect your children. Your children can't just go get on swings anymore, and you can sit there on a bench and chill and have conversation, with your homies and just relax and chill without looking around and making sure not just you trying to hide them from some perverts. You're trying to protect them from gunfire, from gunplay. Oh, here come Johnny and them. Let's go get the kids. The days of having a safe community are long gone. Recreation centers closed. And it's not because the city doesn't necessarily have the funds for it, because nobody used them. Everybody started abandoning them. All that space in those community centers that we used to have art classes, that we used to have boxing. When there was beef, they had people who came in there and let them do some hand-to-hand combat and resolve their differences. Then after, that went down, they sit down and break bread together. Crack a 40 old E or some 45 and kept it moving. We don't have that anymore. So when you look at the conditions, stop saying these kids today, right? Start going to God, communicating your concerns to God, and start doing some work yourself and bring about some change. Just bring about some change. Start doing things differently in your communities, because you're responsible. That change can happen. That change can happen. But if you think City Hall is going to do it, if you think Congress is going to do it, the Senate is going to do it, the Supreme Court is going to do it, Washington, ain't nobody going to do it. They ain't coming. Ain't nobody coming, folks. So we're going to stop on 7. And again, I was reading from an article in the New York Post, 10 ways to fight back against woke culture by Barry Weiss, right? And again, I just want to remind you all to take and make sure you go and listen to my newly released album, Poetic Peace. It's on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, YouTube Music, and soon be available on other platforms. It's on iHeartRadio. There are 8 singles that I also have out that are on those same platforms. But you got to check out the album, Poetic Peace. For those of you who are familiar with Philly, especially South Philly, you'll be able to relate to this tune that I'm about to put on for you. As always, thank you for tuning in. You can be doing anything else on a Saturday night from 7 to 8 o'clock. You sit there and listen to me. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
Yeah, 24th to Wall Street.
Have a great
Another spot in South Philadelphia. That's the home of the 1st District Police Station. Yeah. The most racist, hateful district in the country. And as a matter of fact, it's funny because the police station was sitting adjacent to the playground where they had basketball court, they had a baseball field, right? They had swings, all those things out there. And it sat smack dab between Wilson Park Project and the white community. right? It was always,
Hey, everybody.
always some
Thanks
drama
for tuning
between
in.
the whites and blacks.
Appreciate
One of the biggest things that we were faced with, and I'll get back to the police in a minute, was who was going to be playing in the field. Who was going to be on the swimming pool teams when they start running the squads? Who was going to be on the ball squads? So the white kids used to take all kind of stuff and throw it into the swimming pool because they didn't want to sit there. Somehow or another, they drove a car into the pool. Yeah, I don't know how they drove through the playground somehow, up on the curb, and drove the damn thing right in, through the gate into the swimming pool. We came there, just saw this car, and it's in the swimming pool, man. Couldn't use it all this time. And it happened a few times. Then there was at some point they threw they caught sharks from the Jersey Shore. They brought them on in there and they threw sharks in the swimming pool, so we couldn't get in. They would take bottles and, like, I don't know, they were like collecting, recyclables or something, man. And they broke bottles all in the pool, all on the sides of the pool where you had to walk and all kind of stuff. And the police just had to keep coming out there, man, keeping us from killing one another. Like, y'all gotta make some kind of decision here about this pool usage. And it worked for a minute. We had the AM, PM shift, we had the weekend shift, but then you just have a couple of bad apples who just wouldn't, stay with the truth and always do something silly to get going back all over again. 24th and Wolf Street. And then there was the baseball field, right? We couldn't play baseball in there because they always had league games going. Yeah, they had leagues. We didn't have any baseball leagues, even though we had some staff who worked there and they had, equipment. We didn't have any leagues really popping off. And when we could go out there and play, we had to play at the other end, the end that was like the field was worn out, and there were bases embedded into the ground because we were stealing the damn bases. But then the other, the white kids, they could come out there and they could play. They had green grass, they had the little, removable plates and stuff like that. But then after a while, right, we just stopped playing baseball. We got tired of going out there, and it became dangerous after a while because then the baseball bats became weapons. Yeah. So that was all shut down, so we just surrendered. Too much blood getting spilled, too many children getting hurt. Then there was the basketball court. Well, I think you know who won that one. Brothers were giving up the court. Yeah, and everything else, but I ain't giving up the court. And that went on for years. Yeah, I remember the mayor of Philadelphia. He was a cop. He was a dirty cop. And he was even dirtier as a mayor. And, but he was very firm on the Negroes. Right? He was one of the good old boys. Mob affiliate. I got nothing against the mob. They kept the city going pretty damn good in South Philadelphia. Especially. But yeah, he had it out for the Negroes. He made sure that you knew it. He made sure everybody knew it, how much he hated black folks. And he treated us as such. Then somehow or another, he went up to being a damn mayor. That's what happens when you a good dirty cop in the 60s and the 70s. It went down that way. But them cops, man, they beat us every chance they could, man. They ride through the projects drunk in marked vehicles. Ride through. Come here, boy. Yeah. Want to patch down. They couldn't give a damn about policy, procedure, those things like that. Dirty ass stuff, right? And if you were from the first district, you had to be dirty. I don't care how good of a person you were, right? Because we knew some cops from the district, but hey, it was blue over black, and it's still that way today, unfortunately. If it was that way in the 60s, and here we are in 2022, and that still ain't changed, there's something wrong with this picture. But that's for another song. 24th and Wolf, first district police station. But you would see them on the DL, creeping into one of the sisters' houses. You know what I mean? Looking for that dark meat, playing it off, false arrest, little pat down. I need to talk to that husband of yours. I know he got that stuff in here that is out. Yeah, the creepy kind of stuff. Don't want nobody to know. You got that jungle fever. Wolf Street. Wolf Street. Much has changed, and much stays the same.
Y'all have a great night. Peace.
Wolf Street.